Hello, I'm Mrs. Neill, and this is Mrs. Neill Geometry Lesson number 9. Standard form of a line, of a linear equation, and graphing lines using intercepts. The concepts that we're going to look at today are slope-intercept form. We're going to talk about slope and the y-intercept. We're going to talk about the standard form of a linear equation. And we're also going to talk about the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So let's go ahead and start. Now, a previous lesson, we talked about the slope-intercept form of our linear equation, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is a slope and b is a y-intercept. And you can readily graph an equation that's already in the form. M, you would graph the slope, and then b, that's where it hits the y-axis. Not all linear equations are written like this. This is very standard. Some of your linear equations are written in what we call standard form. And you need to understand the concept of standard form. You use that in a lot of your math classes, not just geometry. You use it in algebra and you use it in pre-calculus also. So standard form of a linear equation is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are real numbers. They're going to be a numerical value. And a and b are not both 0, because if this was 0, and that equaled to 0, we would have 0 equals to c, and that does not form a linear equation. So this number and this number, your a and your b, both cannot be 0 for it to be a linear equation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So if you're given a line in standard form, which is this form right here, we're going to write the line in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, so that we can graph it easily. So we're going to be given the form ax plus by equals c in just a minute. I'm going to give you an example, and you're going to solve for y and put the equation in your slope-intercept form. So let's start off with our first example. I have it right here. 2x plus 6y equals 12. Now I want to graph that equation right there. So what I want to do is get it in the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. That way I can easily graph it. So if I have 2x plus 6y equals 12, I want to solve for y right here. Well, I need to get rid of that 2x right there. So I'm going to subtract both sides by 2x. That cancels that out, and I'm left with 6y is equal to negative 2x plus 12. Now, I don't have y. I've got 6y. I have to have y all by itself. So I need to divide everything by 6. See how I'm putting a 6 under each value there? That cancels out, and that gives me y equals negative 2 over 6x plus 12 over 6. Okay, now that's a lot of big letters there. Remember to reduce. Makes it a lot easier. Negative 2 over 6. If you reduce that fraction, that's negative 1/3 x. Reduce 12 over 6. And you get 2. So now, in slope-intercept form, that becomes y equals negative 1/3 x plus 2. Now we can readily graph that. So what I want to do, I've already got my graph paper right here. Hopefully you've got some graph paper and you can follow along. I want to graph that. So I'm going to start at my y-intercept of 2. Let me use red. And I want a slope of negative 1 over 3. So negative 1, remember it's rise over run, so I'm going to rise down 1, that's negative, and I'm going to run 3 positive, so that would be going to the right. Okay, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to rise down 1, and I'm going to run 3. So right there. I would recommend at least graphing 3 points so that you'll have better accuracy in your graphing. So now I'm going to get a straight edge, and I'm going to draw my line. Now, that's not totally correct. What did I leave off on that example? Arrows. That means that this graph goes on forever way, way up here, and it goes on forever way, way, way down there. So do not forget your arrows. Okay, let's do another example. And that example is 6x minus 4y is equal to 24. Okay, now this is in standard form. That's in the form ax plus by equals c. Now, I want to graph that. I'm not sure how to do that. Well, let me solve for y and get it into slope-intercept form so that I can find my slope and my intercept quite easily to graph it. So, I want to solve for y right there. So, let's subtract 6x from both sides. That cancels. I get negative 4y equals negative 6x plus 24. Divide by negative 4. And I get y is equal to negative 6 over negative 4x plus 24 over negative 4. Okay, let's reduce everything. Negative 6 over negative 4. Double negative means plus positive. So that's going to get me positive 3/2 x. Then I've got 24 over negative 4. Positive over negative, and that's minus 6. So right now that equation in slope-intercept form becomes y equals 3/2 x minus 6. So let's graph that now. So let's get our graph paper right here. And we have negative 6 as our y-intercept, big dot right there. And my slope is positive. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to rise positive 3 and run positive 2. Big dot, rise positive 3, run positive 2. Another big dot. If you notice that has a positive slope rises on the right. It's going to go up this way, up towards the right. If you remember, that's the way positive slope goes. Graph at least 3 points and make a nice straight edge right there. And don't forget your arrows. So that's the graph of that line right there. Okay, let's go on. Let's graph using intercepts. You do this quite often. I've seen this on the PSAT, ACT, SAT test. And if you can graph using intercepts, you can graph quickly and efficiently. So let's look at what intercepts means. What is the x-intercept? It is the point x0 where y equals 0 and the point lies on the x-axis. So let's say I was going to graph right here. That's a y-intercept, isn't it? Right there. What point is that? That's the point 2, 0, isn't it? That's where it hits the x-axis. What is the y-intercept? It is the point 0y where x equals 0 and the point lies on the y-axis. So I'll just pick a point on my y-axis here. How about this one right here? See, it's on the y-axis, and what is that point? That's the point 0, negative 3. So that's what I mean. When you graph using intercepts, you're only graphing 2 points. One on this axis and one somewhere on that axis. Then you're just drawing a line right there. So when you graph with intercepts, you really are just drawing 2 points and then connecting it with your ruler or your straight edge and drawing the line. Okay, here is an example. Let's graph this using intercepts. So we want to find a value for x. We want to substitute 0 in for y. So if I'm going to substitute 0 in for y, I'm going to go to my original and just cover it up with my finger. Because if 3 times 0 is 0. I don't even use that, do I? So 6x equals 12. 6 times what equals 12? 6 times 2 equals 12. Okay, so for the y value, let's substitute 0 in for the x. So if this is 0, 6 times 0 is 0, I'm just going to cover that up right there. 3 times y equals 12. 3 times 4 equals 12. So my y-intercepts, or my intercepts are 2, 0, and 0, 4. So if I was going to graph that, I'm going to put my graph right on top of here. So I've got 2, 0, and 0, 4. See right there, I've already placed them. So I'm graphing that with intercepts. And I can just go ahead, don't forget the arrows when you're drawing your line there. So that was a very quick way of doing that. That is already in standard form. So just using intercepts, we were able to graph that very quickly. Now, let's write that same equation in slope-intercept form. Let's do that real quick. So let's write that in slope-intercept form. So that means that's the form y equals mx plus b. So let's subtract 6x from both sides. And that gets me 3y equals negative 6x plus 12. Whoops, plus 12. Okay, divide by 3. So that gives me y equals negative 6 over 3 is negative 2x. And 12 over 3 is 4. Okay, so right here, my b equals 4. And my slope is negative 2. So if I came back to my original graph right here that I just graphed, right there, okay, there's my y-intercept of 4, and I'm going down 2 and running 1, going down 2, running 1. See how you get the exact same answer by graphing it with intercepts or graphing it with slope-intercept form. Same answer. All right. Let's do one more example. Remember, we did this one just a minute ago. You should have that on your list there. I'm going to graph this using intercepts. We just did this a minute ago by getting it in slope-intercept form, but let's graph with the intercepts now. Okay, so I'm going to cover up, if y is 0, I'm going to cover that up. 6 times what gets me 24? 6 times 4, right there. Now let's graph with find the other intercept. If x is 0, I'm going to cover that up. Okay, now look, this is negative. Negative 4 times what gets me positive 24? Remember, double negative means plus positive. So negative 4 times negative 6 will get me the 24. So now I can graph that with intercepts, can I? I'm going to graph the ordered pair. 4, 0, and then 0, negative 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right there, and then draw my line. Here we go. There we go. We have the line of that equation right there, graphed right there for you. All right, that is our lesson for today. I'm Mrs. Neill. Thank you for listening.